Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July 9th Trips and Traps. Andy Serling, joined by Richard Migliori.
Couple of races that I really thought were interesting, and most of the trips that I see from this week are from riders being too aggressive the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, I think there's
back.
definitely some races to talk about, and we are heading up to Saratoga pretty soon. Want to remind people that this will be the last Trips and Traps before we head up to Saratoga. Next taping will be after the first week at Saratoga on July 30th, but hopefully we've got some stuff in there to get us ready for Saratoga. As we start out, and what better way to do that by looking at the two-year-olds, and we'll look at a two-year-old race run on Thursday, July 2nd, and want to talk about the horses that eventually finished second, and that's the 4-horse, a firster for West Point, Awesome Dame, and more so the 8 Big World, who obviously blew the break. Both these horses, I thought, Richie, ran very well behind a runaway Todd Pletcher freight train.
I thought they both ran well, and they both got a lot out of the race experience-wise, taking kickback, the dirt in their face, having to kind of deal with a little bit of adversity. Obviously, neither one of them broke very well, particularly the 8-horse Big World. And I both thought they showed run, although I don't think people pick it up as much because Tanasa, the winner, was where everybody's attention was.
No question about it. And I think you bring up a very good point, Richie. Watch these two-year-old races and do it in Saratoga. When you get home, go to that new Naira site, watch the replays of these races, and look at the two-year-olds, because the horses you're going to make money with, it's not going to be betting Tanasa and a stake up in Saratoga. It's going to be betting horses that run 6th and 8th, and we'll try to do the best we can to point some of these horses out, but they're the ones you cash with.
Yeah, absolutely. And with two-year-olds, so many things can affect their first performance where you're not going to see all their true ability. Now, I think both these horses tip their hand they have ability, but there'll be other times when the horse doesn't handle the kickback well, or he gets buffeted about into the turn in Saratoga, and he just doesn't run as well because he doesn't have that experience. These are two horses, though, that I thought showed run and overcame enough adversity where I think the race will move them forward.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I think you could see some good things out of them going forward. And I think what you're alluding to also is watch these races and look for little things. It's going to work in a lot of ways for you. One is that you might find some horse that pays $50 that people don't see, that horse made a quick little move on the backstretch or something. But it's also going to be helpful in learning to watch races. And there's probably nothing better than learning from two-year-old races where the horses can do some crazy stuff.
Well, yeah, they're so inexperienced. They've worked with one or two other horses, but they've never been a full field, breaking out of the gate with a bunch of horses. And a lot of times, when I see a horse climbing a great deal from the kickback, and at some point in the race they settle and give you some sort of run, even if they flatten out, those are horses I want back, because it takes so much out of them when they have to climb like that, so much energy, that if they show any run at all, they've got ability.
And you can also, I think it's reasonable to expect that they'll be more adjusted to kickback the next time they run, and they probably won't have the same adverse reaction.
Well, yeah, 90% of horses, the second time they've done it, they just need to experience it one time and they get over it. You always have a percentage that never do, but that's rare.
Well, hopefully we'll see a lot of good stuff with the two-year-olds in Saratoga. We're going to see some stake horses, and this is a race that might serve well as a prep for our De La Rose, which we're running relatively early in the meet, on non-winners of a graded stake in 2015. Darren Cathy is able to get the best of it. We're going to focus on a couple horses that finished second, fourth, Maubrey Rose, the 8, and the 9, Emotional Kitten. I know Richie wants to talk about the head-on of the start.
Well, this is, I think, a prime example. The 9-horse breaks in, and the 7-horse breaks out a bit. But Joe Rosario never made any attempt to straighten his horse at all, well, because you don't have to.
Yeah. He should be made to have to do it. And it compromised Maubrey Rose. You don't see it as well at the start what happens, but you do see Maubrey Rose take well back in here. Emotional Kitten will eventually drop farther behind her, but she did it after getting the clean break. The interesting thing about this race is there were 3 potential speeds on paper. The eventual winner, Darren Cathy, who you know is going. The 7-horse Miss Frost, who does eventually go in those Dogwood Silks. But the 6 Zendaya has the real speed, and she's a sprinter stretching out. Now, I understand not wanting to get caught in a big speed duel, but stretching out, she had to use her speed more to have her best chance. She was also trained by Christophe Clement, trained Maubrey Rose, and in rating Zendaya, it hurt her chances of winning at a mile, and it hurt Maubrey Rose's of getting a fair pace.
You could never have anticipated that if they went 47-1, which they did, that Zendaya wouldn't be on the lead. I've never seen her rate this well. Now, he had to take a hold of her early, but I'm wondering if maybe she wasn't just a little bit flat, because she's usually keener than that.
Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I know they rated her a little bit last time, but she was right on the pace doing it.
And a faster pace.
Yeah, I mean, they have to know that they're going to be going like that. So what happens? There's Maubrey Rose. Emotional Kitten is farther back. So you've got Maubrey Rose, who's been compromised at the start by the break. And then she's compromised by this slow pace, and yet she still runs this remarkable race running a nose short. I mean, she's about as hard luck loser as you can find.
Yeah, she was the best horse. There's no doubt in my mind. And Daring Kathy, the eventual winner, had the softest of all the trips, and she's a quality filly. She's not a horse that's just going to give up. When you could never have anticipated she was going to be laying a half length off the lead, saving all the ground, be able to spurt away at the top of the lane while Marbury Rose is getting out from behind horses, and the same can be said about Emotional Kitten. And Marbury Rose finishes fastest of all.
Wow, is that a tough beat? The thing is, for Marbury Rose, she's good. Daring Kathy is a good horse. This was off a layoff. This was a time to try to beat her.
Sure.
She's going to get better with more experience this year. You think of that UN down at Monmouth Park where they ran the rabbit. Why don't more guys use rabbits?
I don't understand it. I mean, I watch races day in, day out, and I actually get frustrated because I see so many guys taking so much hold of their horses, and the pace is slow. And also, I gotta make it personal. All I say to myself is, gosh, I'd be on the lead a lot right now if I was riding.
Yes, and you do wonder with riders like yourself and Jorge Chavez that we're much more aggressive riders. And I wonder if the fact that you guys aren't there, that has something to do with the fact the paces are a lot slower over the last few years.
I mean, but wouldn't you eventually catch on and say, you know what? I get a base on balls. I get a free ride if I just allow my horse to run freely.
I keep thinking that, and I keep banging my head against the wall. Race number 5 had a quality horse in the lead, and that was Ready for Rye. This is an interesting race to talk about, a 7-furlong race, the 5th race on July 4th, because Cabo Cat just gets monstrously unlucky here, and this is the kind of situation that the rider Rajiv Mirage absolutely tried to do the right thing, and he not only gets blocked the whole stretch, but the hole that he gives up, or the space he gives up, is taken by the second-place finisher.
Well, I think this is a great illustration of an unlucky trip as opposed to a bad ride. You know, he was trying to do all the right things, and you do have to hedge a certain amount to give yourself other options. Now, he's getting a good trip, and I thought a very legitimate pace. This is one race where I thought they were running right along. And, again, like you said, Ready for Rye's on the lead, and he is a quality horse. When Rajiv starts looking to get out, it just basically runs into one blind switch into another. And the horse that he eventually takes that position away from goes back to the fence and actually works out a decent trip.
It's amazing. I mean, the horse who ends up finishing second is the 6 who's behind him at this point. And Raj is doing everything right because he's trying to give himself extra options. He's drifting off the rail. And right now, you see the spot the 6 is in. Raj actually takes his spot away from him. And that's the right thing. He has to get by the 5 anyway. The 6 is kind of skunked. He's got to go back inside. Raj goes into that spot. Just to point it out, the 6 goes down in there. And Cabo Cat, he thinks he's going to get out here, and he's just not able to because the 12 didn't accelerate as much as could have been anticipated.
Yeah, he didn't accelerate, and he didn't have enough time to build up enough momentum to get out before that next wave of horses makes that, gets first run up on him on the outside. And then you see the position where the eventual runner-up with Cornelia Velasquez, Barrel of Love, kind of came up the fence. And it's such a hard thing, and I know people will be critical of riders, but when you're in that position and you're trying to do the right things, you're looking for an escape. And now you get the escape, and where you left opens up, and you go, why did I ever leave there? But, hindsight's always 20/20.
You try to be very fair, and it's frustrating. Listen, it's as frustrating in that situation for the rider, the connections, as it is for you watching it, because you watch it, and you're helpless, as is the rider in that situation. And it comes up on Twitter, and somebody will say this, rider, that, and sometimes I'll say, well, what exactly did you want them to do? Because sometimes they're just unlucky. You can't always... Yeah. Every move you make won't be the right one. You make a lot of split-second decisions.
Yeah, and everything's happening very fast, and that was an illustration of an unlucky trip.
We will look at a race that wasn't really an unlucky trip, and this is the Suburban. And there's been a lot of talk about it, and I really want to get Richie's take on this. As FNX and Tonalist both got a great setup, and let me just start out by saying, the third finisher, Coach Inge, probably ran the best race of everybody, and nobody's talking about him.
Wow, did he run some race? He had every right to just collapse, and he was still in there fighting until inside the 8th pole, so you got to give him a lot of credit.
No, this is a horse. Todd Pletcher's done a tremendous job with him. I mean, he was a maiden about 9 months ago running at Aqueduct. He is an honest-to-goodness good racehorse. Back in 5th right now is the eventual winner, FNX. Tonalist is behind him. Talk about what happened here, Richie.
Well, I got to give Johnny Velasquez a lot of credit for what he acknowledged after the fact. that he just did not give this horse a good ride. And you know what? It takes a real man to be able to own it and just say, you know what,
Especially
I
in
made
a
a
big
mistake.
race. Especially in a big race like this.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things is now tonalist, blinkers off. He kind of came out of the gate a bit lackadaisically. He really wasn't jumping in it. And I don't.
Twice in a row he's done this. 3 in a row, actually.
Exactly. Now without the blinkers. So I think Johnny was probably pecking at him to like, hey, get interested, and maybe not realizing how fast they were going up front. And then when Tonalist got the message, got the signal, he kind of jumped on the bridle. And now he's in a tough position in between horses.
And he's dragging FNX into the race.
And he also made FNX get, kind of riled up a little bit. And I think Junior did a great job of being able to steady out of there without checking and losing all his momentum. But Johnny basically went from last to head for the lead in between horses, an uncomfortable position, about a half a mile too soon.
Yeah. Now, do you think when Junior was able to pretty facilely steady off of that without pulling him up, do you think that's the move that won the race?
I absolutely do. I think that, there's times when a rider will steady. It's a key point in the race where you go, that definitely cost him. This was actually a blessing in disguise that he had to steady a bit there. And he was able to do it smooth enough on a horse that's difficult, a horse that bolted the time before. Yeah. I noticed as he came through the paddock before the Suburban, Jimmy Jerkins, who's done an amazing job with this horse, had changed bits on him. He had a Houghton bit, which is a severe bit, helps keep horses straight. And then he was able to draft in behind them, saving a little more horse, was able to come out and split horses.
First time he rode him, too.
I mean, he rode this horse tremendous. This horse was trained tremendously. And let's give the horse some credit here. It looked like Tonalist still might beat him in spite of that trip, and he dug in and fought for it.
I tell you something, Richie, this was a heck of a horse race, and so much attention has been focused on Tonalist could have been the winner, and obviously he's the much bigger name horse. I don't want it to get lost that Coach Inge ran as well as he did, because he's really lost in the shuffle, but also with FNX, the Connections did the right thing with this horse. They gave him to a top trainer in Jimmy Jerkins and have allowed Jimmy to train this horse, and boy, have they been rewarded.
Oh, absolutely. You made the analogy like a diamond in the rough. Well, Jimmy was able to polish this diamond up, and all three, the first three finishes all ran extremely well, and they all had trips in one fashion or another. But I do give Johnny Velazquez a lot of credit, and it speaks, again, volumes about the person he is. Jockeys aren't perfect. Trainers aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. He made a mistake. He owned it.
At the end of the day, when you own up to your mistakes, you silence your critics. Because if somebody says the guy gave last right, he says, yeah, I did. You say, well,
it's a lot more disturbing when a guy won't own it, because then you don't know that if he even knows what he did wrong and how to improve on it.
And Tonalist has been an unlucky horse. I mean, he wasn't going to win the Met. He could have been closer. Situation here, he does have to break more sharply. I tell you what, it's going to be an exciting Whitney up in Saratoga in just a few weeks. We're going to take a look at the next race, which was the Belmont Oaks. Now, Lady Eli is in a different league than here. We don't want people to miss some trouble that happened, because this is a little bit like the Met Mile, where there's a bunching up trouble at the start affecting the 4, 5, and 6. I think the 4 took the worst of it, along with the 5. The 6 got bumped around too, Richie.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of action there in the middle. And again, I hate to sound, like I'm just repeating myself over and over again,
but it's true.
But it's allowed, so nobody makes a huge effort to stop this from happening. And at some point, a statement has to be made where, guys, you need to straighten horses up out of the gate. And I don't want to hear that nonsense, oh, it's out of the gate. A rider has the ability to control his horse a lot more out of the gate than what I'm seeing lately.
I agree, Richie. It's one thing if a horse veers in and it's something you can't control because they act up, and you do the right thing right away, as you point out. And there's the 6, and this is the California Invader Spanish Queen. She has a no-shot trip. I thought very good jobs. Christopher Sumian gave It's Only Acting Out a sensational ride. Also the 5-horse near Miss Chatelaine. They were able to get position farther back. Once again, if a horse veers in, there's nothing you can do. You can straighten it out.
Sure.
You don't want to have a disqualification because of something like that.
Right.
But there has to be a situation, whether it's fining riders or suspending them, that are willfully not doing anything to prevent it from happening.
And you can see when somebody's making an effort and they're not. And in 19 out of 20 instances, you can stop a horse by the 2nd or 3rd step. It doesn't have to be the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th step.
And we've talked about it ad infinitum on this show, and because we firmly believe it. And you just have to watch a lot of races to know it's true. There is nothing more important than the start of a race, because the start of the race, it sets the entire table. And if the table, it's very, you pull the tablecloth out and everything stays, it's perfect. If you pull it out and everything falls over, well, it's not. And that's what happens when these starts get screwed up.
Well, absolutely. It takes you out of position, and the last thing you want to do is be caught in a position where you're behind horses that are naturally slower than your horse. You wind up using more energy working your way inside, outside, around, through those kind of horses, and we've seen it time and again where you expect the race to set up a certain way, and at the break, it's completely changed.
Yep, and sometimes it's random, and sometimes it's not. Keep your eye on the 6 here, Spanish Queen. She is going to get totally shut off. She's down in the inside. In that yellow hat, that's Christopher Sumion. It's only acting dad. I thought he gave her a great ride. The 5 is back here, is actually following strict compliance. That's Javier Castellano. He is intentionally following Lady Eli, and they're all sort of following each other. It's interesting to watch these chess pieces, but I'll tell you what, Spanish Queen, Reese Blank had to totally eat her.
Yeah, no, he never got any opportunity to let her run. And you and I, listen, Lady Eli, Chad Brown said it best, she breathes different air. Oof. No one was beating her. Oof. It would have been nice to see, if Spanish Queen maybe could have run on to be second or third if she had, any sort of an opportunity, but she was completely stymied. And I agree with you. Christophe Sumion, what a ride he gave. And you pointed it out to me, and I didn't pick it up as much, but Miss Chatelaine actually ran a lot better than I gave her credit for until I went back and watched it a few times. She was jammed up probably the worst at the break, and then losing ground when they're accelerating and finishing, she had no chance. Nobody was beating Lady Eli, but these are horses maybe in different spots you look forward to.
Absolutely. They may not have to contend with Lady Eli in some of these races, as she has some bigger fish to fry, hopefully, because she is in a different world. One more race to look at, and this is actually the last race of the week on Sunday, July 5th. I want to talk about this race because I don't understand what the tactics were on the 5-horse out of Cypress Hills, who ran far and away her best race last time when they sent her to the front. In this race, it felt like the rider of her, and also Hush Now, did everything they could to prevent their horses from getting the lead.
Well, I mean, you just look at the position of the riders. I mean, that's more like an exercise rider galloping a horse in the morning, trying to restrain them. And, I mean, that's a clear illustration.
Can't circle them, just keep it rolling.
You don't want riders to look like this in the afternoon, and they're both intent on getting in this battle with their horses. And I am of the firm belief that horses use more energy fighting restraint than they do letting them just get comfortable and run at their natural gait.
No, I completely agree, Richie. And the thing is, with Out of Cypress Hills, in her last start, she went to the lead. She ran a very good second to a Christophe Clement horse. Why would you want to change something that worked, especially when it was unnecessary? And it feels here like whether it was instructions, and maybe the trainer told the rider to do it, or the rider decided to do it. Does he not look at her PPs? Which ones do they look at them? Why wouldn't they want this horse to try to go to the front?
And again, I don't know what the instructions were, and maybe Manny Franco was instructed to rate her this day.
Now he actually has nothing.
Well, yeah, because you basically have taken it away, and you're sending mixed signals to the horse. I want you to slow down. Now I want you to go. A horse is only going to take so many cues. I mean, they're not all like Lady Eli, who's like driving a car where you can make multiple moves. You've got to put it in a horse's mind to go forward. And I guess you can look at this and say, well, he worked out a decent trip after that, but the run's already taken out of the horse.
Exactly. Right, you say at the end, she just didn't have enough horse. Okay, that's fair. But at the end of the day, she's not being ridden to her best advantage. You know what? Go to the front and run fourth. And she's not good enough. But she is not going to win this race being rated like that.
Well, and again, let's go back. And let's just say, and we don't know one way or the other, that the instructions were, we want this filly to rate. If I'm riding her, at what point do I say, I can't fight with this much? I think I would have put my hands down and then dealt with the trainer later.
Well, let me say something else. You've studied the form the night before. Yeah. You've looked at the race. And you go down to the winner's circle. You go down to the paddock. And the trainer says, I think you can put a hole. And you say, let me just say something. I looked at this race long and hard. I watched her last race, thought she ran sensational in the front end, the best race she ever ran. There's really not much speed in here. I'd really like to put this filly on the lead. Is the trainer really going to fight you on that when you've done that much homework going into it?
You would hope not, and it was Pat Kelly. I doubt he would have. And I think I would have said that. Let me play it off the break. It doesn't look like a lot of speed in here. If they give it to me the right way, let me ride her that way. And if somebody goes crazy, then I'm in position anyway. Again, it goes back to getting your position going forward. So if somebody does get overly ambitious and the pace is hot,
you got no choice.
Now the field spreads out. You've got options. You work out a good trip. If nobody goes and you're galloping there, what's wrong with being on the lead? Speed is dangerous.
Speed's very dangerous, especially in these inner turf races. Frequently because the paces are so slow. Once again, Richie and I will be back on this show for 3 weeks. That'll be July 30th, But you guys will watch some races. You'll give us some help. You'll help us up in Saratoga. There'll be a lot more trips and traps to come.